Entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and empowered visionaries, welcome back to another episode of Impact Greater Than Influence. This is Rodney Waits. I am going to be solo this time. I hope that you have enjoyed the previous episodes where I've got to interview so many amazing people. But the root of this show started in a radio station, started with a production manager. It started with a really, really cool venture that I started to see unveil my true purpose of what I was supposed to do with my life. Now, thank you for all of those that got to be with me since the very beginning, the inception of this show, where I had no idea what it would become and where it started to grow in ways that I could have never imagined. You know, that's the perfect segue for what I want to talk about next, because I've not been consistent with this show for a multitude of reasons. And why I say that is because I'm going through some change. I'm going through a season of change, a season of growth, a season of looking profoundly inside of myself in order to reveal what my next steps might look like. And I want to call this episode something that ties right along with that train of thought, and that is outpacing God. And what I mean by that is I'm doing the very best I can to chase opportunity and to pursue all these different directions that I'm realizing are my own selfish desires. Now, one big thing I've always been able to see very clearly is that I'm okay with putting my insecurities out into the world. Now, I know that there's power in words, but I'm not admitting these insecurities as something that's going to completely debilitate me. I'm doing this because of the fact that I know there's someone struggling and someone who could definitely relate to this. And I hope that this empowers you. You know, everything that I've done in the past, whenever it comes to something where I put myself in the limelight, if you will, is because I want to empower someone. I know that there's someone with dormant potential, and maybe they're scared, and maybe they're living in this false reality where they don't see their giftedness that comes from the Lord. And I have to tell you that I'm speaking directly to someone right now. And although I don't know your hair color, although I don't know your walk when it comes to where you are in your relationship with God, I do know that you feel something calling you to something bigger, something calling you to something you've had a glimpse of before, but you quickly shied away from it because you started to doubt yourself. And why did you do that? You started to see what we all see. These distractions in the world that can come from media, that can come from others, and can come from the devil himself, the ultimate deceiver. We are all subject to those daily. And I know that there are moments of bliss. There are moments of true joy and gratitude overtakes all of us. But we do feel this sense of heaviness on our lives at times when we aspire towards our purpose. You know, I don't know if you believe in God, and I don't know if you believe in yourself, but I want to ask you to believe in others. I want to ask you to take that next step in seeing how significant people are around you and how it's not on accident that they're in your life, whether they're your family, whether they're your friends. I want you to look at them as someone who can truly be valued and you can learn from, and that you can truly appreciate for being in this season of your life. They might not always be there. Now, I'm not saying this about spouses or sons and daughters, but I'm talking about the people that have given you a glimpse of who you are and who have made you feel significant and valued for just who you are now and not who you're always aspiring to be. Now, when I started this off, I talked about outpacing the Lord. And what I mean by that is we hear that the best way to have a fulfilled life, oftentimes in the Christian world, is to walk with the Lord. If you're walking with someone, you're not outpacing them. You're walking alongside them, oftentimes hand in hand, maybe even just shoulder to shoulder. I want you to think of grade school. I want you to think of when you were going to the bus stop and you were walking with your best friend, or maybe you were walking with someone in the neighborhood who you were just in conversation with. You weren't running from them. You weren't stopping every other step. You weren't outpacing them. You were walking with them. We can walk like that right now with the Holy Spirit, because when Jesus left this earth, he left with us someone profoundly misunderstood in this day and age. Do you know how many times I've watched social media and I've seen people get asked Do you love Jesus Christ? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? And when they say no, it just completely hurts my heart in the deepest way because I know what it feels like to be them. And I know you didn't expect that, but I've outpaced the Lord for quite a few years now. And I don't mean to oftentimes, so at least I tell myself that. But my intention is to hurry towards this goal so that I can have some rest. But see, here's the thing, we're only going to experience rest when we are willing to do the Lord's will. And I know that as this show has grown, it's gotten more, as a really good friend would say, Christian y. But that's just my walk of life. And that's where I want to dedicate my time and efforts to. Just this morning, I was reading in Ecclesiastes, and I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. But I was reading in that book of the Bible where so much wisdom is spoken in the most simple terms. And if you heard my last episode, you saw that I got to interview my coach, as I call him. He's a friend. He's someone I've never even met in person. We met online 2.5 years ago, and he is all the way across the world. But yet God put him in my path. And when I was speaking to him the first time, he spoke very simply. And if you're like me and you're a millennial, or you're someone that just grew up with technology being second nature, you think more on the complicated side than probably someone who is your grandparent or even your parent. And I remember speaking to him, and I was talking about prospects, and I was talking about people that I wanted to do business with, and I wanted to do business with me. And I had every intention of doing business in the right way, and that's great. But at the heart of it, I didn't understand. I was just looking for more friends. I was just looking for more ways that I could serve people who would appreciate me for who I am. Someone who would appreciate me almost like my father would if he were alive today. I was outpacing the Lord when I was looking at all of these opportunities to go and join networking groups for the specific purpose of finding a way to serve others before I knew a thing about them. You know, if you've been with me for a while, you heard in one of the most early shows that I did here is that it was impossible for me to understand God without knowing his story. And it's kind of the same way for your neighbor, kind of the same way for the person that you work with, who you haven't really talked with much, or maybe even the person that you've talked to in passing when you go to the car line to pick up your child. There's so many people right now that need the Lord, and it can start with you. It can start with just having the emotional bandwidth to take on their problems for just a good 10-minute conversation and truly let them know how valued they are as a person that's going through this season of trials that they feel they're in. And it's really great for me to see this because I'm oftentimes preaching to the choir, as they say. I'm hoping that this resonates with myself. I know that those times when I'm outpacing the Lord, I can do things that are for my selfish desires. And also know that I'm kind of programmed to do so because there's so many advertisements, there's so many billboards, there's so many different things that come from media that I watch and even listen to that make me want to have that haughty spirit, that make me want to think of myself as aspiring to be the best. But what is the best if you think about it? The best oftentimes risk things right now so that they can have more later, but in the worst ways. I mean, think about it. They are willing to put themselves in a position to be alone 10 years from now with no one to share all their wealth and their materialistic aspirations with. And we don't think about that, but that perfectly segues into why I read the book of Ecclesiastes. It was because a friend told me that I would relate to it in this season of my life. Now, it came from them giving me this recommendation because they saw a post on Facebook. I don't know if you've added me there, if you've followed me there, but I'm very vulnerable at times. And even though my mother told me not to be like this, and one of my best friends told me not to be like this, it empowered multiple people. And it inspired them. And they reached out and they asked me how I was. And I was not having any types of tendencies toward questioning my life or its validity. I was just simply being real when I showed them what kind of struggles I was really going through. And when I was reading this morning, I saw that a lot of this going theme for what Ecclesiastes was speaking into my heart at that moment was that all of these things when I'm outpacing the Lord are meaningless. All of these things that I'm chasing, when I'm running away from that timing that's needed, when I'm truly walking with Him. And sometimes, guys, walking with God can be simply staying still, reading the Bible, sitting in prayer, or even meditating and listening to Him should He prompt something to be on your heart in that moment. And I just realized in that moment, right then and there, when I was at one of my favorite coffee spots outside, nature in the background, that everything I was aspiring to chase was meaningless. You know, it's sad when you think of what we're deceived to believe is important. And although we have good intentions, we fall victim to a lot of that deception very easily. And, I think about it more and more every day. Why? Why are you doing this? You know better than this. And it's because I'm aspiring for the best reasons in my heart. And I know that that's not always true. Like, guys, I can be a very, very avid joker. I can be a absolute child with my fiance, and I can be downright a very judgmental person sometimes with my friends and state a lot of things that you would never think you would hear me say. But at the end of the day, I do have great intentions to make room for other people when I want to selfishly focus on myself. And I do think that is a step in the right direction. And I hope that that's people getting to see Jesus instead of myself. So when I think about things like this being meaningless, I think of things you might be thinking of right now. Maybe you want a promotion at work so that you can have a little bit more money, so that maybe that stability will come with more time that you can give to your children. Maybe you want to have a better car because yours doesn't always run right. And you've seen your friends have a really great car and you just think, wow, I deserve that too. Or maybe it's simple as you trying to build a business and a massive enterprise that is built to give more hope to the modern day entrepreneur who can't get past all of the mental muck that comes with everything that we get distracted from and by in this world. All those things are really great. And I know that there's something inside of you, like that calling we talked about in the very beginning, that aspires to do things that are for the best of mankind. But you're not that person to decide what that is. And I'm not speaking to just you, I'm speaking to myself. In the very beginning, when I wanted this show, I didn't want it to be something that would be taken by the marketplace, but it very quickly was. And what I mean by that is everything started to say impact. And then God spoke very clearly to me that impact is mine, it's not yours. Yes, you're making time with your one-on-ones and coaching to be there for people and to hopefully give them some words of encouragement, but you're getting that from me. I've gifted you with this ability to share with other people. You're not going to take it from me. And at that moment, I realized that everything was His. And that's why when it came to this podcast in the very beginning, I wanted people that were not believers to feel encouraged and welcome to these words that I'm speaking right now. And I hope that even if you're here now, you have a grave respect for why it is I love Jesus. Maybe you think that I'm going to judge you for not, but you would be quickly mistaken because I've been in your shoes before. I'm not better than you. I'm probably you more than you know, and more than even I know. But I will tell you that that's why in the beginning, I started to come up with different ways that impact was greater than influence. I started relating it to modern day influencers. And yes, that does feed into why I created this. But at the end of the day, there's no impact without Jesus in my life. And if this transformative message awakens some part of you to where you can then focus in on what it is that truly matters to you and find that most fulfilled version of yourself that wants to take time for your kids now, that wants to make room for giving people hope now, then I've done my job. And although I've said it many times, it's hard to just know that affecting one life is enough. I mean, I've had so many people write me emails and so many people even call me or even state things that I could only long to want to hear and see on just text message alone. I still feel this drive to do more and to have more. And although I know where it comes from, I also know where it's not from, and that's from the Lord. So I hope that if you're listening to this, and I hope that if you've gotten to hear all of what these thoughts mean to me, it just prompts you to wonder, when is it I'm outpacing God? And how do I slow down and truly walk alongside him so that I can see what's meaningful and not meaningless? Guys, I know that I'm a wanderer when it comes to some of these episodes. And, I used to look and try to meet this timeline, and I used to look and try to think about when something was going to be on the dot, a time I could stop this. But this solo podcast, an episode that I've done for you here has been from the heart. And I hope that it's awakened something inside of you to want to just try more in the very best ways while giving yourself grace and loving others. It's not always easy. And like I read in Ecclesiastes, a lot of these things are hard to really see as meaningless. But think about, what is it that matters to you? We get swayed into thinking that our why is the core focus of why we have to look at business in the right way. But there's so much more to it. There's levels of this why that are not going to only drive you today, but drive you every day for the rest of your life. If you learned something here, now, with me, leave it in the review. Please, just review this so I can know and we can have a conversation together. This means more than any currency could ever mean to me whenever I see those honest words of change. And that's where I think impact comes from, is lasting change. It's a lasting impression. It's that moment of where you really feel poured into, and you can see that that person did it with the intention of not wanting something from you, but of just wanting to see you succeed, of just wanting to see you feel fulfilled. I hope that you got that from this episode, and I hope that you get it from many more. I might do more of these solo episodes. It's just thoughts that are prompted to my heart. And then once I feel this message, I know it's time to release it. And although sometimes it's messy, it's always something that I feel comes out of a beautiful chaos. I hope that if you're listening to this, you enjoyed these words, you get to review this episode, and I look forward to talking with you more the next time on Impact is Greater Than Influence. Thank you for listening.